Hello, podcast listener. I'm back after an unplanned extended break, and I appreciate you returning with me. Today, I'm happy to connect with one of the top 25 wineries in the U.S. Most of you have seen their brand in grocery stores, but they have so much more to offer. This episode will highlight their current charitable campaign that stretches across the U.S. Join me in San Jose, California.
This idea of 50 years, 50 states, and 50 ways of giving is a really good idea, as it gives us a chance to tie in with each of those in the 50 states that we deal with.
He's Jerry Lohr, the J, and founder of Jerry Lohr Vineyards and Wines. The family-owned and operated winery is celebrating their 50th anniversary in 2024. In nearly every grocery or liquor store, you'll likely see Jerry Lohr wines. They're on the shelves next to brands owned by much larger companies, many of whom added to their portfolio by buying previously established wineries. Jerry Lohr, who now stands at 1.7 million cases a year, and they are 20th on the list of the largest U.S. wine companies. What I find impressive is they built their success on their own collections, all under the Jerry Lohr name. During their half-century of business, philanthropy has played a consistent role in their operations. For their 50th anniversary year, they chose to go nationwide with their community support with a charitable initiative that identifies one nonprofit organization in each of the 50 states. Organizations chosen will receive $5,000, totaling $250,000 in donations nationwide. You heard Jerry allude to the name of the campaign, 50 Years, States and Ways of Giving. What's appealing about this campaign is you, the consumer, can nominate your own favorite charity for the $5,000 donation. In addition, there's a national $5,000 award being made to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. To add to the nonprofit list with one that you support, you can visit jlohr.com/50ways, and Jerry Lohr is the letter J, LOHR.com. This campaign is active until September 30th, but jump on it soon. Jerry and I will touch upon this campaign, then we'll share details about their impressive history during today's episode. On the Wine Road podcast is sponsored by Sonoma Clean Power. For those of you in this beautiful area, learn how your actions can make a greater impact with clean, renewable energy at poweringeverydaymoments.org. That's poweringeverydaymoments.org. If you don't live in Sonoma County, see if you can find renewable energy in your region. Now, Jerome or Jerry Lohr. I started by saying how honored I was to sit with him to talk about his past and this respectable philanthropic campaign.
Well, that just kind of ties into our family history, in that I grew up on a farm in South Dakota where my parents were very much supporters and very quiet leaders in the community. And so I came to California in 1958, 3 years at Stanford, 3 years in the Air Force. And so there was a period when I was just in school as a research scientist in the Air Force, which I wasn't able to do much. And so then as I completed my tour of duty in the Air Force and got started in the building business, then we really started being a little more active in the community. And so, but in 1989, I went on the foundation board at South Dakota State University, and has been the major leader there. And so it's now the Jerome J. Lohr College of Engineering there. It's many other things there. Then came Davis, then came Cal Poly. When the family was thinking about how do we celebrate the 50th anniversary here, we had one very sharp young lady who just happened to have moved on, who said, well, for many years you've been in 50 states, and with your philanthropy and Cynthia and Stephen Lawrence's all activity in this, why don't we just talk about the philanthropy that you do? So this idea of 50 years, 50 states, and 50 ways of giving is a really good idea, because what it does is it gives us a chance to kind of tie in with each of the persons that we're dealing with in each of those in the 50 states that we deal with.
Yeah, I think it's impressive that you're encouraging people to nominate an organization that's close to their heart in whatever state they live in.
Yes, so that's kind of what we've done. For instance, I didn't go to Davis. I went to Stanford. Cynthia went to Davis. Our winemakers have. But as other people have come to us and said, "Gee, Jerry, would you support this?" In some cases, I don't, because they maybe are politically, a political supporter. I do some of that, but not much. Mm-hmm. But certainly, education is one big thing, and then the far and away the most special situation for the family is that we lost my wife of 49 years at the time, Carol, to breast cancer. Mm. And so Cynthia picked up almost immediately on the National Breast Cancer Foundation. And so as a family, we all have participated in that.
Right.
And then the children do some with their schools or the kinds of things they did before. For instance, Lawrence was in theater and entertaining. So
right.
Theater Works we've just had a big honor with and so forth.
That's fantastic. Nominations are going on through September 30th of this year, so you're giving people across the country plenty of time to decide what they want to nominate.
Well, there's another reason for that, and that is that earlier, many years, I used to travel quite a bit, and then we were kind of cut off from traveling during the COVID period. But now the three G2 Lohrs, Steve, Cynthia, and Lawrence, and Steve Peck, our national vice president of winemaking, all travel so that in each region, they are in one of the 9 regions once a month. So if you take the 9 months of the year, those people will have seen each of those 3 or 4 persons. So that's the reason we kind of spread this out, so that our local people have a chance to bring in someone when we're there.
You know, to say congratulations on reaching 50 years with your namesake winery is a statement that doesn't quite express or encapsulate all the hard work and endurance, ingenuity, precise planning, and growth that it took to persist through 5 decades. And it appears that you did so with grace and thoughtfulness.
Well, I entered the business very different from almost all people who enter the business. Most people become in their more mature parts of their career, they become wealthy enough and they become interested in wine. They'd like to get in the wine business. Mm-hmm. Those are many people we know, and almost all the ones I knew have now passed away. Then there were the ones whose parents did that, and so they're in it some. But maybe the parents didn't get in till the children were already in their own professions, and so then they decide, to come in the profession or not. So our situation, or my situation, and our now family situation is quite different in that I started young in my very early 30s. And, I'm Catholic. I'd always heard about wines and vines in church and asked Dad several times, why don't we grow grapes and produce wine here? And he's too cold in South Dakota.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason when I narrowed my graduate school students down to Cornell, MIT, and Stanford, I chose Stanford.
Good idea.
Because California wine.
Right, yeah. I was wondering what made you come up with that decision to get into the wine business.
The coming up, the decision was severalfold. I hear about it every Sunday in church. My business partner in the building business, to begin with, we for many years, 14 years, we were partners. It was Bernie Turgeon. He was French-Canadian. His wife was a French war bride. Her mother and grandmother lived with them. They always felt very good about being able to drink French wines, but we were union, so every second Friday was Black Friday. So we'd have lunch then, and so we could relax a little bit, and so we had wine for lunch. And so we started talking about it and found out that he was interested. And so when we incorporated in the building business, I was 28 and Bernie was 41, but he wanted to retire when he was 55 because he started as a carpenter. And so then he said, well, how could I go full-time in the wine business at 55? And we said, sure. It would take us a while to build up to it.
Right. And you did that quite well.
We did that, but then for various reasons it didn't work out quite within his family. So after in 1980 then, when I started bought him out of the building business over 4 years, he said, this is I'd like to just be at a different scale. This is a little bigger than what I thought we might be, and your goals are a little different from mine. So why don't you buy me out? And so then he had his own with his son, and so that gave me the chance to really eventually build it to where I could bring my 3 children. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so what part of that was the business he was involved with?
Well, he was going to manage the winery right here in San Jose because his wife's and her mother and grandmother, doctors are all in this area.
Okay.
So I was going to be the vineyard coordinator and be the traveler so he could be here, and he was going to manage the winery right here.
Getting back to the 50 years, states, and ways of giving, I wanted to ask, how long was that idea being knocked around by your family before you decided to pull the trigger on it for this year?
The ways of giving we've talked about a lot because each one of the family members or various others of us would come up to and say, gee, you ought to support this or support that. Like I said, Lawrence has a 20-year history on Theater Works, and Cynthia has now the 16-year history with National Breast Cancer. But to have a coordinated national plan has only been 2+ years now.
Okay.
And so, as they say, we had a lady that suggested this, and she said, you're so philanthropic, especially with all Mr. Lohr is doing back in South Dakota, and Cynthia's doing this, and Steve is doing this, and so forth. So all we did is we kind of gave national structure to it to try to inspire other persons that we work with in the distribution or marketing and so forth, or learn from them what their passions or their interests are.
Yeah, good to have some focus in that.
Yeah. Learn by listening.
Founder, CFO, Jerry Lohr. What I find respectable with J. Lohr Vineyards and Wines is they have a wine for every level of wine consumer. From their estate series that features all the expected California varietals starting at $14 to their vineyard series with wines from $25 to $60 to the J. Lohr Signature series with a 100% Cabernet for $100. They have a few other collections as well, which you can see at jlohr.com. I imagine your wine club is very happy, and you must have some pretty high retention rates with all the options you have for everybody.
Well, we have quite high retention rates in a somewhat different area in that we always have, because our wine quality is good. Wine quality is absolutely important to us. We are not into using a thing called Mega Purple, which many wineries are now doing. It comes from a red grape, but not a vinifera grape, and so they put it in. We don't do that at all. And we have the various levels, and as we've moved up the levels, we've had other brands. Cypress, for instance, was quite big for us for a while because we're on Cypress Avenue in Greenfield. We had another brand or so. But I really wanted to have the Estates be the main one, Estates. So that's Seven Oaks Cabernet, which has just under 1 million cases.
Wow,
and we grow most of the grapes. The Chardonnay, Riverstone, you can see pictures around of where the roots go down. I don't know if you've seen pictures of that, and so forth. But then we want to do the Vineyard series, which are much smaller, and that we've struggled to really get placements on that because everybody was like the Seven Oaks and the Riverstone and the Las Osos Merlot and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And I like the clever names you chose for your Cuvée series with a nod to Bordeaux's Pomerol and Saint-Emilion and Pouliac. Kind of fun.
Well,
because looking at it, you'd be like, what is Saint STE? What does that mean?
Well,
and what does Powell mean?
So for sophisticated drinkers that are experienced, and we've been there quite a bit. Remember, I spoke technical French and Carol thing. So we've been 6 or 7 times there in quite a bit of time. So PAU is for Pauillac, POM is for Pomerol, and STE is for Saint-Emilion. And the predominant grape in Pauillac is Cabernet, but it's always blended with a number of other things.
Sure.
So that's one of the things we learned really clearly, because we could barely buy, and we didn't pay for the really expensive French wines. Pomerol is Merlot country, but there are other things come into that. Just 10 miles away in Saint-Emilion is Cabernet Franc country. So it took us years. When I first planted in Greenfield in Monterey County, we planted in the first 280 acres, 90 acres of Cabernet and 30 acres of Merlot, because those are the only two Bordeaux wines that we could get at that time. And we planted a little of Pinot Noir and so forth. But then over the years, we've been able to bring in the other Bordeaux varietals. So we have quite a few Bordeaux wines now.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it as a sophisticated drinker, because I was able to figure out what those meant. It took me a little while. I was looking at it going, that's an interesting way to name them. But
the idea is to kind of inspire people a little bit, or
right.
because it's unique, and thank goodness other people haven't copied that.
Now, was that your idea, or was it your winemaker's idea?
It's a family idea. Whoever comes up with it, we talk about it. But
yeah.
Many of the ideas are mine, but you say, well, gee, shouldn't we do this and this? And somebody says, I don't think so. And then you say, well, should we do this and this? Yeah, that maybe is a good idea.
Yeah.
So
sometimes committees come up with good ideas.
Yeah.
Jerry gives his daughter Cynthia, the chief brand officer, credit for J. Lohr's new colorful bottles within their Monterey Roots series, featuring Riesling and Valdeggy, and the refreshed Riverstone label, which is adorned with colorful flowers, and a new Enjoy Anytime screw cap. Again, you can find details about their 50 years, states, and ways of giving at jlohr.com/50ways. This impressive campaign runs through September 30th. I'll continue my conversation with Jerry as we touch upon their sustainable business practices, his family, and employees after this short break.
Sonoma Clean Power is proudly celebrating 10 years of serving Sonoma and Mendocino counties as your local, not-for-profit electricity provider. In the early 2000s, California passed legislation allowing cities and counties to create community choice power providers, public agencies owned by the community they serve. SCP began in 2014 and immediately launched Evergreen, our 100% local, renewable service that became a model for the nation. Since then, we've saved customers millions of dollars while reducing greenhouse gas emissions, investing in our communities, and brought energy education to our schools. We've advocated for grid reliability, climate safety, and also increased the number of electric cars and bikes on our roads. Together with our customers, we've made great progress, and we're not done yet. Join us as we continue to light the way during the next 10 electric years. Sonoma Clean Power. Innovation grown locally.
Thanks for returning for my conversation with Jerry Lohr of the incredibly successful J. Lohr Vineyards and Wines. Sustainable farming and integration of modern developments that can safely enhance their vineyards and winery has been important to the Lohr family and key to their growth and success. They've been certified sustainable for 14 years, are a Green Medal Award winner, and in 2009 they installed the largest winery solar tracking array in North America.
Yeah, everything we do, in reality, we try to be as efficient as we can, or to really make the best wine that we can. And it happens that efficiency makes best wine. And so,
sure.
Solar, we have a number of solar. The reason we did the tracking system at that time is the cells were so expensive that it made more sense to track. So when you visit our winery down there, you'll see that at night it goes flat. In the morning it comes like this. The afternoon it slowly goes like that. And you see very few tracking areas anywhere. And so now we have, I think on building tops, we have at least 6 or 7 other, and in vineyards, 6 or 7 other solar, and we're in the process of a couple more major solar.
That's fantastic.
Introduction now. Yeah.
What percentage of your business is running on solar? You're so large.
Well, the winery has been as high as 90%, but we haven't added to the Paso Robles one, and so it's more in the 80-some% range. So, which is very good.
That's respectable.
The vineyards are so scattered around. So, but I don't know what it is in Greenfield. So at the Greenfield Winery, we don't have solar here because of another situation. In the Greenfield Winery, we have it over the parking, which is you see a lot of schools where they have solar over the parking lot, and we have it in the building, and so forth. Into the system is because there aren't batteries. And for solar, for instance, you very much need batteries, and so forth.
You must be proud that your children are deeply involved with your family business, because a lot of times in the wine industry these days, that's not always the case.
Well, our situation was entirely different, however, in that I started much younger than almost anybody I know that started. And so when I started, In 1974, we bonded. Steve and Cynthia and Lawrence all graduated from high school in 80, 82, and 87. So we were going at that time.
Yeah.
And then they were going to all go to college. And at that period, people spent several years in college. So, but people in the industry said, Jerome or Jerry, depending upon how well they knew me, you ought to suggest to your kids that they go get in whatever profession they might like for 10 years or so. Otherwise, they'll want to come into the winery as 23-year-old, and they'll want to be vice presidents. Then the people that have worked with you building it won't know who they report to. So my three children, or Carol's and my three children, our three children, were born in the 60s and didn't come in until after the year 2000. So Steve was born in 61, came in 2002, and so forth. So they all had experience in other professions before they came here, and that was very good.
Right. And did you assume that they were going to come work with the company at some point, or you didn't care, did you?
No. There was just an individual decision that they made, but we set it up so they could. But after this, Steve was in the building business. He enjoyed it, liked it. Cynthia was in the high-tech business, doing very well.
Yeah, I was real impressed with her resume.
Yeah. So she was with a number of different companies and moved and did things. Lawrence and his group were primarily in entertainment and so forth. So they could have all followed in their own things, and just as they saw it. But we're not a little operation. We have scale in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And so they saw that there were places that each of them could move into, and they have, and so it works.
This might be a tough question, but what do you think was the best decision you made or effort that you undertook that led to your remarkable success and longevity?
Choosing people to work with.
Oh, the people.
Choosing people to work with. Because where I could find the vineyards, the location, or get out in the market, and to choose distributors, to choose persons we work with, that's exceedingly important. And when we celebrate our 50th anniversary here, we had 265 co-workers.
Great.
And so most of those are Hispanic people. They're working in the winery and the vineyards and so forth. And as any of them have abilities, we move them up. And we have Hispanic people here in this office and the bottling line and so forth here. So in choosing people, we just had a lady retire on Friday a week ago, 43 years on the bottling line.
That's incredible. Well, I'll tell you sure brought a lot of experience and knowledge to your business early on. I mean, when you just read that, he was a farmer from South Dakota, but you're impressing the heck out of me with all the studying you've done and all that you accomplished early on.
Well, yeah, I think I've always been a reader, and so studied farming, and I saw the importance of soils and how my grandparents had assembled our farm, and which were the poor soils areas and which were good. And then the difference in grapes, of course, is you don't want clay. And so you need a sandy loam or a gravelly loam or a loamy sand loamy sand you can't have. But so you only find those in certain areas, in the areas where there's the proper climate. So now the whole climate change thing is very important to all of us. And it's not so much that it's global warming, as I discussed earlier for changing our Merlot, but it's the storms that we're having and the different heat things that we're having and so forth. And so the climate change that is occurring now and is going to occur unless we cut back some other practices is going to get much more worse. So we're going to have to be much more aware of the microclimate in our local areas.
Have these rainy storms been an issue at all, or is it still a good thing to get all that moisture?
The rainstorms in our growing areas, both of Paso Robles and Greenfield, have not been severe, like flooding, like you hear about in other parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And because the soils that we have are water-absorbing soils, and we don't irrigate unless we have rain, and so then we very carefully, as we irrigate in the spring, if we have a rain, we don't irrigate. So it's another way of just bringing moisture, but it's refilling the soil profile that beneath, so that we can still pump good fresh water for irrigating.
That's always important.
That's very important.
I was wondering what your family crop was in South Dakota.
Oh, in South Dakota at that time, it was wheat, rye, corn, oats, barley. But now that's become primarily a corn and soybeans, because soybeans are used for both person and animal food, and 40% of corn is used for ethanol.
Yeah, very important.
Yes.
Family, place, and craft. That's your ethos, isn't it, in this business?
And Cynthia's the one that kind of lays those things out, because she's kind of our public relations person,
right,
and so forth. But family was always very important in the wine industry. The place where you grow the grapes is very important, and making wine you can do in other places. And then the craft is as I said, the most important thing of the persons you work with. Mm-hmm. Respecting and appreciating and challenging and thanking them.
Well, congratulations on a life well lived.
Oh, thank you. Still at it. So would you like to taste a little wine?
I would love to try some of your wine.
Okay.
Again.
Good.
I always like hearing that question after an interview. Jerry and I tasted through 6 of their wines, and as I've discovered over a period of time, for the lower-priced wine categories, I'd say J. Lohr is one of the best-tasting and full-flavored wines on the market. Look for their tempting full list of wines on their website. And I have to say, I found their higher-priced wines are comparable to other luxury brands. I'd like to thank Jerry, his son Steve, and several of the team members who hosted me for the few hours I was at the winery in San Jose. You might want to plan a wine tasting trip there soon if you live or are passing through the area. That brings today's episode to a close. Check out my website, onthewineroad.us. I'm on Facebook as On the Wine Road and Instagram as JD Wine Road. If you're on a podcast platform, a positive review is always appreciated. My podcast themes are composed by Marscott. I'll catch you next time on the Wine Road. I'm Jeff Davis.